2024 to December 12, 2024, and would like to speak to that motion.
Okay, please go ahead.
So originally, in the last Finance Committee meeting we had, there were two disbursements that showed up on the record that went to the National Performing Arts Center and the other company, the real estate company, I can't think off the top of my head. And I asked questions about those two transactions. The communication that was put forth in today's packet of this meeting explains those thoroughly, and it's just a confusing process of how that all works out, but it's playing out the way it is designed to. Just kind of a confusing process to go forward. So with that, I have no issue with this record.
All right, so the motion is to approve this record of expenditure. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes.
Alderman Govea is a yes. Alderman Moran?
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons?
yes,
Alderman Clemens?
Yes.
Alderman Clee?
yes,
Mayor Donches?
Yes.
7-0.
All right, now we go to the current record of expenditures. Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the Finance Committee has compiled with city charters and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures from the period of December 13, 2024 to January 2nd, 2025.
All those in,
Roll call.
excuse me, roll call. Please call the roll.
Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes.
Alderman Govea is a yes. Alderman Moran?
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons?
yes,
Alderman Clemens?
Yes.
Alderman Clee?
yes,
Mayor Donches?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes. General discussion. Any general discussion? Public comment. Any member of the public wish to address the Finance Committee? Please step forward.
Matthew Guthrow, 104 Fawn Lane in Nashua. I just wanted to bring up, I noticed here on the Finance Committee agenda, in one of the expenditures, John Griffin's name on here, and I spoke with him last night. It was my understanding that he had retired as Chief Financial Officer in some of the communications that were made to the public, and I mentioned that to him last night, and he had mentioned that he was working part-time. It concerns me as a member of the public that as a city, as we are careening towards over a $500 million budget, that we have a part-time CFO here in the city, especially with the amount of bonding that happens in the city, with the amount of the amount of purchasing that we have going on in this city, with the amount of public spending that we have going on, that we have someone that's our chief financial officer is a part-time person. And what are we going to do to get a full-time representative in that position? Because I think that's an important job, especially with the amount of financial accompaniment that happens in this city. It's an important job.
Definitely important job. The plan is that he will work in that capacity through the end of the fiscal year, June 30, where to get us through the next budget with an experienced CFO, and then at that time to hire a replacement. There may be an internal candidate, and if there is, that person would be better prepared as a result of working with Mr. Griffin over these months. And so this, again, this is an interim measure and isn't intended as like a permanent situation.
Okay. I just, as a resident, it's quite concerning, especially with the breadth of the amount of financial options that are happening in this city.
I understand.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public want to speak to the Finance Committee?
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I just want to address a right-to-know issue that I had sent to the full board. I'm always looking for ways to reduce the burden or have a policy work for me. And I sent a question on the 29th of December to Mr. Perrin and asked when the comprehensive annual financial report would be up on the city website for, I didn't think 23 was there, it was, and 24, when that would be completed. And if the MS9s and MS10s for these trust funds were on the city website, could he just please direct me to where they were? And I was looking for 9 years of those. Today, I received a response to my questions, which was a records response where he sent 470 pages of responsive records of MS9s and 10s, did not address the other questions, told me that's only batch 1, and they were producing 9 years of those. I actually did a records request for 2020 to 2024, which was being filled. I did not want 2016 to 2024. I only asked for where it was on the website. I have no mechanism to communicate with them. So I get 470 pages of responsive records with another batch coming. I actually left a message on his phone machine. He doesn't allow me usually to call, but I had no other choice because January 13th, they're going to produce the remaining batches. I don't want them. If you're going back to 2016 and 2019, don't give them to me. I didn't make that records request. And if, I'm frustrated that the city views my requests as a burden. And when I ask a simple question, which I came here to the board and addressed on December 26th, that I asked a simple question for the name of the trust accountant, and I was told to turn that into a records request. And had you had a board of trustees for the trust funds with minutes and meetings, I would have known. And then here I go again on the 29th with a simple question, and I get 450 plus pages. I'm frustrated because that allows you, people and city leaders, to publicly bash me for burdening them, for filing too many right-to-know requests when it was a question, and I'm really not an advocate of keeping that position anymore. It creates more liability than benefit. When I have the ability to go to a department, I find them great. I can tell you the DRA and the Department of Justice have been excellent with me. I get records in 2 days. I'm sitting down here being told I have to wait 5 weeks from the city. It's not working. It's malicious, I think. It doesn't have an avenue to communicate. And I'm letting you know, because I reached out on the 29th when I made that request, and I said, any board members with courage, step up and address this. Nobody did, and I just sent it to you, the 450 plus pages and the response I got from the city. Malicious. And I have to try and stop that, and I don't
time.
even know how. Thank you.
Any other member of the public wish to speak to the Finance Committee? All right. Remarks by Alderman.
I do have one question.
Yes, Alderman Govea.
I actually have a question for Mr. Smith, if I can.
Yes, of course.
So on the communication.
He's still here.
Yes.
Please just come on up.
Thank you. And I meant to say this when we were doing that communication. I was a little sidetracked with all these roll calls tonight. But I do have a question about the communication we approved for the plow truck. So this was being taken care of through SURF, and I went through the SURF schedule and didn't see it on there. So is this replacing the other vehicles that were on that SURF plan for this, or is this in addition to those?
It replaces them. I sent a communique to John Griffin about a year ago to change around the established schedule because we had just found out one of our trucks was told we couldn't drive it anymore, and the other one was just a year later. So I jumbled things around, and that's why we got this one this year.
Perfect. I was just making sure because the prices seem relatively the same of those 3 vehicles to this plow. So the numbers added up. Okay. Thank you.
Any other remarks by Alderman? If not, I will look to Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to make a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes.
Alderman Govea is a yes. Alderman Moran?
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons?
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons?
Yes.
Alderman Cleet?
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes.
7-0.
And the Finance Committee meeting of January 8th is adjourned at approximately 7:39 p.m. Thank you very much.
figuring out, most likely,
And I hit record.
they're probably auditing.
Just showing the road.
And asking for the credentials
Hold
of
on.
that person.
Okay, we're on record and we're unmuted.
All right, if I can have everybody's attention, please. I am going to call tonight's meeting on the Committee of Infrastructure to order, this being January 8th at 2024, and the time is 7:46. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Alderman Thibodeau?
Here.
Alderman Sullivan?
Here.
Alderman Clee is here. Alderman Dowd?
Present.
Alderman at Large O'Brien?
Present. I did not read the proper thing, but this meeting was duly noted in 2 places, including the city's website, in accordance with the requirements of RSA 91A, semicolon 2, numeral 2. Okay. Also in attendance, we have via YouTube, Liz Hammond, Jill Stanfield, but I haven't seen her as of yet, and Mr. Cummings of Administrative Service Director, and Mr. Sullivan is also present back there. Okay, I think we got everybody. Aldermen, not members of the committee, raise your hand so the clerk can record you.
Okay. I got you. Okay.
Okay, I will now open it up to public comment. Please state your name, your address, and there'll be a 3-minute time limit. And it is also to only items that are mentioned on the agenda.
Thank you. Mike Susi, 3 Roseanne Circle here in Nashua. First of all, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I want to just briefly talk on the barriers. I don't know which direction that you're going to go or the full board, but I'm not going to rehash all of the old arguments. They've been out there for a while, the pros and cons, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. But if you want to go in the direction of the barriers at some point, I would just make the recommendation that this question is actually put as a ballot question at the next election. I think this is going to be the second most significant issue on the ballot next time after property taxes. So that would just be my recommendation. If the decision today is no, that we're not going to move forward with the barriers, my next question would be, how does that affect the master plan? Will that affect the master plan of wanting to bump out the sidewalks and transition downtown into something a little bit different? And if that's going to be the case, I think definitely that we need to bring that as a valid question. I thank you for your time. Happy holidays, and God bless.
Good to see you, Mr. Susi.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. So you probably all could guess that I'm not in favor of continuing with the barrier program. I think it had its time and place early on. I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves on this plan to change downtown and change the lanes and extend the sidewalks. I think it's a costly project, actually, to take on. And I think the public support really isn't there. I don't think it was really there the first time, and we ran with it, and we've done 3 years with it. This is a tough time right now. There's a pretty measurable recession going on, I think, downtown. And I think overall, people have limited money to go out and eat and do things, and I think it's going to stick around a little bit. And I don't think there's a need for you to move on this. There also hasn't really been much data given out or communication. You're doing this for the third time, pulling it off the table because nobody came and presented anything, which means we didn't get to hear anything either. But I'm not really certain that the support is down there from the restaurants, and paying increased fees is really going to be welcomed. So I think it did its purpose, and I think we should let this go for now. And if we, revisit our plan and our expenditures, and we tackle how we want to treat downtown, then it comes up again, and we revisit what we're going to do. So that's just my input. Thank you.
Matthew Guthrow, 104 Fawn Lane. I'm here to speak. I'm not in favor of the barriers on Main Street for outdoor dining. I've really, lately, over the past few months, I've really seen the barriers in a new light. Over in Ward 2, DPW has placed the barriers, the same Jersey barriers that you've seen on Main Street, on Tinker Road to protect traffic from some aging and what happened is some decrepit guardrails that had broken, and they're using them as a safety measure. So rather than protecting people on Main Street from traffic and their Cobb salad, we're actually protecting people from careening off the highway onto Route 3. So I think that we should keep the Jersey barriers for what their intended purpose is a public safety device for DPW to use. My concern is every time we use these Jersey barriers on Main Street so that the restaurants can squeeze in 4 or 5 more tables for outdoor dining, we're charging the taxpayers a couple $100,000 in order to do that. But when DPW uses these as a public safety device, we're not charging the public that money. So where's the logic in that? Why can't we not charge the public that amount of money to place those barriers on Main Street? That seems logical enough. If it doesn't cost them any money to protect the traffic on Tinker Road, why can't we put those barriers on Main Street and protect those people from having their lobster bisque? It seems like common sense. But I think the common sense approach is that we shouldn't really need those barriers. We have big enough sidewalks to have those outdoor dinings as it is right now. I mean, there's not a huge need for that. I came to you last time we had this discussion and told you I had an experience trying to experience that outdoor dining at one of Michael T. Buckley's restaurants, and I had a great meal, but I couldn't dine outside because he didn't have the staff to do it. And so if you guys need these barriers in there to have that, but the tables sit empty, what's the purpose of putting these barriers out there? So I ask you to vote your conscience when it comes to stuff like this. Common sense, people. Thank you.
Good evening. Karen Bill, 95 Parnell Place, Nashua. I'm here to speak against the barriers. Their time has come and gone. During the pandemic, it was a godsend to the restaurants and to people who couldn't get out. It was nice. You could be out in the air. You could eat. I think it was the right thing at the time. The next year, 2021, the restaurateurs said, they didn't work like we thought they were going to work, like they did the first year. But 5 years in, enough is enough. It's time to give Main Street back to all the citizens of Nashua. I avoid Nashua downtown like the plague in the summer, as do a lot of people that I speak with. Every time the barrier conversation comes up, I'm shocked at people, leadership in this city that say, oh yeah, I don't go downtown. I don't dine downtown in the summer. Because it's just not enjoyable. The traffic is nuts. I did write a letter to the editor. It was in the paper. In case you didn't see it, I had a friend who was walking her granddaughter downtown on a Friday afternoon in the summer. Barriers are up. Accident on the highway, which is not an anomaly anymore. There's a lot of accidents on the highway. And what happened? Ambulance tried to get through, and it was gridlocked downtown. Heaven forbid, if it's you or I, no matter who is waiting for an ambulance. Oh, gee, we couldn't get through because gridlock downtown. I applaud Alderman Clemmons for trying to come up with a solution to get the 4 lanes, because obviously people want 4 lanes, and to keep some kind of street dining. But so Michael Buckley sat here in this horseshoe with you a couple years ago, and I said to him, Michael, before the pandemic, how long were you doing outside dining? About 20 years, right? And he said, yeah, 18. And I said, did you ever in all that time have to turn anybody away? Did you ever have to ask City Hall leadership for more room because you couldn't accommodate the people out there, or there was an overflow, or people walking away? And I loved his answer. No. Their time has come and gone. There's plenty of room on the sidewalks, because how many times did you drive downtown this summer and see empty tables night after night after night? All these tables set up, dozens of tables at some places, empty. It's time to give the street back to all the residents of Nashua. I'm all for outside dining. Do it on the sidewalks, and get this, Boston discontinued their sidewalk dining because the city of Boston was going to charge the restaurants for sidewalk dining. And the restaurateur said, no, we can't afford it, we don't want it. But here, that's a privilege for the restaurateurs in town.
Sorry, time.
So
I looked
do the
up
right
and saw it.
thing.
I
And
apologize.
that's okay. Thank you for listening, and I hope you repeal it.
Anybody else would like to come forward at public comment? Okay. At this particular point, I would like to go under the direction of Liz Hannon, Economic Development Director, who has done a lot of the studies when she came on board, employed by the city. So she accepted the mantle from other people. So we'll have her next to explain the pros and the cons, hopefully, of outdoor dining. So, Liz, are you with us?
We need to take it off.
Yes, I
We're not
am.
going in order.
Okay. And Liz, from the board, huh?
We're not going in order.
No.
Point of order.
Oh, yeah, I guess we can.
I'm going to do that.
Basically, what it is there's a couple items. Liz, if you could stand by.
Yeah.
There,
We should do communications.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
communications.
I don't see any communications.
There's none.
Yeah.
Unfinished business.
None.
New business resolutions
There's none.
and new business ordinances.
None.
Okay,
Petitions are none, but we also then have the tabled in committee.
yeah. And if I may say, the petition L Deerwood Drive, that is still being negotiated at this particular time. And I think by our getting involved with would affect the legal process that is going on. So I think we've got to sit on this one, monitor it, and allow that to go. Hopefully that the two parties can come to resolve. The next one is 024034, which is assigning Pine Street Extension parking lot to Zone 3. At this particular point in time, this one isn't really 100% ready for prime time either. So it should remain, if you so wish, on the table, which gets us right into the crux of the matter. Any objections to any of that?
We're going to remain on the table.
Seeing none. So both will remain on the table. And so without further ado, and thank you for waiting, where does she go?
Ooh, the computer's rebooting itself?
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We
Hold on.
can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, that's because it's trying to, we don't want it to reboot. We're going to tell it in 2 hours it can reboot.
Mr. Chairman, I think there should be a motion to remove that legislation from the
Yes.
table.
Well, make the motion.
No, he can't.
I don't think it was
Oh,
due.
Oh, I see you can't. So what do you
Hold on.
want removed from the
hold on.
table?
We'll do that in a moment. Hold on. I just got to take care of this
Yes.
first.
Well, thank you for your attention, but we're running the show, so we got it.
We'll do it in a second. Hold on, please. Hold on, please. There we go. Back to the Zoom. Liz, are you still there? Or did we lose her?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know if we can see you, though. Says we're not signed in. Okay. Hold on.
Mr. Sullivan, you familiar with this?
I don't know why it sent us out. That on Teams.
Zoom extraordinaire.
Um, It was just right there in the corner.
Liz, you can still hear us?
Yes, I can.
It was when you
Oh,
when
it's
you'd
not
opened
actually
it.
running Zoom, that's why. How did you access the Zoom like this?
She had it on. It when you had lifted the screen the first time, it was there. And you did the windows.
Yeah, but that's not actually Zoom open, so how do we get this one?
Okay, it's right here.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to have. We have to. You got workspace. Okay, right there. Just to join. The meeting. Okay, I can do it from here. Okay, yeah, got it. Okay. I'm the host now. Okay, good. Got it.
Okay, now that everybody's present, very good. Welcome back. Anybody would like to make that motion that has been
I'll
reminded
do
to
it.
us by Alderman Moran?
Mr. Chairman, I will make that motion to remove from the table 024-036, relative to seasonal road closures and elimination of certain on-street parking for extended outdoor dining and other non-vehicular use.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderman Moran.
So that's final recommendation.
No, we have to remove from the table, and then we have to vote on the
Okay.
third.
So we got to remove from the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's removed from the table.
And then I will
Next
make a motion.
pending motion,
I
yes.
will make a motion to recommend final approval of 024-036 relative to seasonal road closures and the elimination of certain on-street parking for extended outdoor dining and other non-vehicular use.
Could have shortened the title a little bit on that. Okay. Liz, I hope you're well.
I'm here.
Okay, we have with us Miss Liz Hammond, who is, again, as I stated, Economic Development Director. Would you like to give us an overview of this proposal here?
Yeah, that'd be great. I have a quick presentation just updating what we're talking about, and then I'll pass it off to some of the experts that you were looking for advice from in the last meeting. So I just wanted to start with, let me see here. Make it a slideshow. There we go. Just highlights from this last 2024 period, 25 spaces on Main Street, approximately 155,000 visitors curb to curb, which was about 82,000 unique visitors. So people are coming about twice a year. We took an average of 33.45 per visitor, which if you remember the report from the Arts Commission, it's kind of the only local dollar amount that we have. So I took it as an idea. So 33.45 is per visitor is what we're averaging in arts spending outside of the ticket sales. So I use that number because it's the only thing that we have that solid number. So this take it with a grain of salt, that 33.45, but it's about $5 million with 155,000 visitors. And then I just added this as this is the return on investment. Our barrier placement in 2024 cost just around $57,000 to place. And some of the comments earlier, this cost that doesn't exist for DPW is because we do hire an exterior contractor to place those barriers, where most of the barriers are placed for DPW within the department. So our fees collected last year were $11,500. The net cost to the city was $46,000. So I kind of reverse engineered that. So we, as a city, spent $1 per 3 visits. So if you're looking at that, at the $33, every dollar that the city spent on this program, we returned $99. So it's a really good return on investment. I've never seen that big a return on a project before, which is pretty exciting. So I think that we are seeing usage. And I just added, in case we want to talk about the actual, what it looks like, I added a map of one of the blocks to talk about. And then just to remind you that this was part of moving forward towards our Imagine Nashua master plan, where we will kind of reclaim some of the space for pedestrians in the downtown. I know we saw about 10% drop in car traffic during the time that the barriers were out, and I'll let the traffic experts talk a little bit more about that. But in terms of moving towards this Imagine Nashua master plan, that could be a really good thing because we're seeing less people driving through Main Street and using it as a highway. And we're seeing the people that are actually spending money downtown still continuing to patronize our small businesses. So the other thing I did that I didn't, it was kind of a random request, but I looked at just regular pedestrian traffic, and we are back up to 2019, so pre-pandemic numbers, which is pretty exciting as well. So we've kind of exceeded what the national standards are. Most communities are still working towards their numbers in 2019. So just wanted to give you that idea and show you what this Imagine Nashua master plan was looking like, a concept plan. And then I will stop sharing here. And I want to hand it over to some of the experts that you were asking about. I know we have emergency services, we have traffic, DPW's there. So we've got everybody that you might have questions from. I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief from the fire department there. Adam can come up and answer any questions you might have about how emergency vehicles are getting through.
Welcome, Chief, how are you?
Doing great.
Good. I got to ask this question, unfortunately, because there's a lot of misinformation has been put out here, okay? Are you, in your appearance here before the Infrastructure Committee, coerced in any particular way?
No.
Okay, thank you. You may go with your presentation if you so wish.
Sure. Adam Pliot, Assistant Fire Chief. I just want to say the question that we're asked the most, or the things that I hear the most, is that the barriers affect our response up and down Main Street. And I'm just here to tell you that that is not the case. They've been in place for years now. They do not affect our response. The few little issues we had the first year have been corrected. Those were issues like leaving a gap in the barrier so that we could get to a hydrant, leaving a couple of gaps per block so if we needed to get a stretcher to a building, we could do that. So all those issues have been fixed. And I'll even go a step further. This spring, we put a new traffic preemption system in place here in the city that replaces our old Opticom system, which worked on line of sight. We had a unit mounted on the roof of the apparatus that would hit a receiver on top of the utility poles, and that would trigger the lights to change. The new system is GPS-based. It works well. It's much more reactive. We're able to handle the intersections much quicker. We're able to respond much faster. Our system is better. It does not affect our response at all.
Okay, questions by the board to the chief? Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. I guess there was mention both in public comment and I've seen other comments about traffic gridlock and whatnot on Main Street. What's your experience from where you sit?
We've had no complaints from the company officers that are in charge of the apparatus responding to calls. No complaints that they couldn't get through. No complaints that they were blocked.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Other members present? Any questions? Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I don't know if this directly goes to the fire department or if this would go to more of the traffic engineers or to all. So I'm just going to state it and then we can kind of, I guess, address it the best way. But I had put forth in the last meeting, and there was a communication that was accepted, a proposal to, instead of having one lane in each direction, to put 2 lanes. That was primarily the biggest change out of all of it. And so I'm wondering if we could ask the question of what the opinion is on that as far as how that would impact the downtown. In other words, is it feasible? Would it impact response times in a negative way? You know, all of those questions. So we obviously have the answer about the 1 lane in each direction. So I'd like to have an opinion on the 2 lanes in each direction.
Yeah, and I think we will also, that's in the queue, will be Mr. Dan Hudson, who's the city's engineer that has been working on this project for quite a while. And I think he'll be able to more focus. That seems to be a subject matter that more focused by him. Any other questions of the fire chief? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that, you know, we get these myths that the biggest one is always, oh, someone's going to die, we can't get up and down the street. Firemen and emergency services can't get up the street. You've just told us that's not a problem. Can I hear it one more time on the record? So maybe out there in the world, people will actually believe the experts, which we're not the experts. You guys are the experts, so can I hear that one more time,
Sure.
please?
Yeah, the years that the barriers have been out there, they have not impeded our response up and down Main Street. It's not been a problem at all.
Thank you for that.
Anybody else open? Alderman Moran.
More of a statement. I'm just surprised that there's misinformation that you would be forced to come here. I was totally
I
aghast
knew.
by that. Run the tape back. I was in shock, but I'm glad you're not here under any coercion.
That's the beauty. All this is recorded and on the tape, and you can hear the accusations of the past. But any other further? Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, just for the record, since our ambulances are controlled by AMR and not the National Fire Department, do they have control of the GPS?
They do not use the traffic preemption system. Their vehicles are smaller, much more maneuverable. And again, we've had no complaints from AMR as far as being able to access Main Street in either direction.
The other question I have is typically if you're going down Main Street and either you or the ambulance is using a sirens, cars pull over and I am assuming there's enough room for the trucks to get through.
Yes.
Not to get highly technical, but if you look at in responding, if you get a red traffic light, that means somebody may have tripped it before you did. And they would also enhance it by, we still got the red beacon, right?
Correct.
On the arms. So that should tell the drivers of all apparatus that somebody else is in control of the intersection and to yield. So that's why we haven't had the, thank God, no major accidents and everything. So what I said is basically true?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Further questions? Chief Pouliot, I thank you very much, sir. Seeing there's no other further questions, the pleasure of the board, can we let Chief Pouliot go home because he has worked a full day already, so. Without objection? Thank you, Chief Pouliot. All right, I'll call our police chief, Chief Warrock. Chief Rourke, again, thank you for attending. I gotta ask you this just to make sure that you hear of your own volition without any interference by anybody politically or anything else like that. You gotta give the board your best interpretation of how this system works, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, Chief, I'll let you go on your own words of what you want to present.
I'll concur with the fire chief said. We've had no data to support that we've had problems getting to calls on Main Street. Our vehicle's obviously a lot smaller than those trucks, so we can maneuver a little bit better. So we've had no issues. The only complaint, well, the only thing I'll say is that we get a lot of calls or complaints right around the beginning of the barrier season for when the restaurants are outside, when people are outside, is the loud noise of vehicles, of stereos, of exhaust. So handling those or parking on Main Street and enforcing that is tough because not a lot of area, but we still do enforce it, and our traffic stops. The guys have learned over the years, we'll stop the car on a side street, so we don't stop it on Main Street to make it more congested if we can. So that's the only issue I'll mention tonight. Other than that, we're able to maneuver through Main Street and the traffic. It's no different than Christmas down at the DW Highway. Actually, that's
Alderman Clay.
Thank you. I have to ask this question then, because I've eaten downtown before the barriers, and noise is noise. So I know you weren't chief at that time before the barriers, but do you not think that there would be calls because of the noise, even without the barriers, just people in general calling? When people are at the lights, they're going to be doing music. There's going to be 2 lanes instead of just 1 lane now. They're going to still be just as close. They're just going to be 2 lanes of traffic now.
Yeah, what happens down there is the sound from the exhaust, motorcycles, it echoes off the buildings. We've actually brought meters out there.
Right.
Pulled over motorcycles, and they haven't risen to the level of the state law, a majority of them. So it's the echoing off the buildings, a lot of these motorcycles. So believe me, there's nothing that's more annoying than sitting down, having dinner, and listening to the revving of but it's, a lot of it's the echoes of the building.
Yeah.
Follow up?
But in truth, that's not going to have anything to do with the barriers.
no.
And even without the barriers, you're still going to probably get the same complaints because now there'll be 4 lanes of traffic
Sure.
rather than just the 2 lanes. We're still going to get the same
Sure.
echoing. It's
Yep.
people at the lights when they're sitting there with
Sure.
their music going, and now you're going to have twice as many motorcycles and
Sure.
so on. So, thank you.
No complaints, chief, of anybody stealing somebody's french fries from the table or
Do you want
anything?
me to answer that truthfully?
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel you're compelled to? Go ahead.
We've had people, do that. One guy drank a beer right off the table of another guy.
I thought we weren't going to talk.
Unbelievable.
That's a true story.
Okay, open it up to members not on the committee. If you have a question of the chief of the police department. Alderman Moran.
Just a statement in regards to exactly what you're talking about. My wife and I were downtown when the barriers were up, and there was a person at the bar that required police assistance because it's a sexual assault incident. And we called, and you guys were there, lickety-split. Barriers or not, and I think in that, I was actually impressed by the response time. Just firsthand experience that, in an emergency like that, you guys were there very quickly.
Yep. Yeah, as a police officer, one of my pet peeves is response time, so we do keep an eye on that. My philosophy is you call the police, you should be going there, so they know.
And they made sure everyone was safe
Yep.
and took care of the issue at hand.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of the chief of the department? Seeing none. Oh, yes, sorry.
Just one
Alderman
question.
Dow.
Have you experienced that there were any more or less accidents when the barriers were up downtown Main Street?
That I can't answer. I was gonna run the stat, and our analyst is out with the sick kid, so if you want me to email all of you that answer, I can do that, but unfortunately, she's out this week taking care of her newborn child, so.
Yeah, well, I can make it an official request because as this has got to go, chief, this is the committee's work. So once we get it, we can remail it out to all members of the board.
Okay, I'll get that to you.
And
I'll
they're
get that
going to
you.
sit and make we make recommendations in committee. The full board makes the final decision.
So do you want accident reports from the time the barriers go up to the?
Alderman
down?
Dow, what do you feel that you need?
I was just concerned if there are any more or less accidents when the
Okay.
barriers are up versus when they're not up.
Okay.
And it
That's
doesn't have
easy.
to go back forever, it just,
I just don't have the ability to run that, but she will.
Completely understood,
certainly caring for a newborn is pretty
Yeah,
important.
and
Yeah.
I won't get into the details, but
All right. Anybody else with questions with the chief of the department? Seeing none, can we grant the chief the same courtesy we granted to fire?
Yeah, he was up
And
pretty late
allow-
last night.
thank God.
Allow the chief to go for his supper. There you go.
Thank you.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
Take care. Thank you, chief, for coming. Okay. Ms. Hammond,
Poor Dan. Dan.
Hannon, yeah.
Dan?
Huh?
Dan?
Well, no.
Yeah.
It's basically, I'm letting Ms. Hannon
Okay.
do the presentation and running the meeting.
Yeah,
so-
I think the committee had asked for traffic and engineering as well, and so Engineer Hudson is here, and I believe Wayne Husband as well. So I'll hand it over to them for your questions.
Okay. And Mr. Hudson, you gentlemen may grab a seat in case you might be up here for a few.
We'll start here, and then if this goes on and on,
Okay, it's your
we're
call.
happy to.
All right, Mr. Hudson, just start with your presentation and.
Yeah,
We'll go
so
from
Dan
there.
Hudson, City Engineer. Again, I'm here with Wayne Husband, Senior Traffic Engineer. I don't have a presentation per se, but Wayne and I both did review the previous meetings and Alderman Clemens' memo, so we can speak to those things. I will say, I also am here on my own volition. I have not been coerced in any way to be here. Wayne is here on my request, so he may not be able to say the same thing. But,
Duly noted for the record. Can you raise your right hand when you say that?
But just briefly, you know, this extended outdoor dining plan has evolved over time. I think when we first started, we have had a few hiccups, a few things we addressed, but it seems to be a plan that's working well now. We have not received complaints about traffic other than the day that there was the event on the highway there where traffic was all over the city, but trying to pass through downtown, and clearly there was gridlock during that event. So that's the only complaint I think we've heard this year or this last year. We're very comfortable with the plan. As I said, it's evolved over time. There was some public comment about, you know, could DPW put these out, and we certainly could, but the problem is we can't do that like quickly. We don't have the amount of equipment that the contractor has that we hire. The contractor also subcontracts traffic control while we're putting the barriers out and picking them up. So they have multiple tractor-trailer truck flatbeds and equipment that they mobilize both to the landfill to load barriers and then to offload and place on the street. So although we in engineering assist with the layout of the plan, they come in and they implement it quickly, and it all works very professionally. And we're in and out in about a half a day so as to not disrupt traffic while it's happening. So our recommendation, if economically feasible, is to continue with that professional setup and breakdown. Speaking to Alderman Clemens' memo with trying to retain 2 lanes in each direction on Main Street, certainly 2 lanes in each direction on Main Street has a higher traffic capacity than does 1 lane in each direction on Main Street. So during events such as that event this summer, traffic will flow better than it would other times. But again, we really haven't heard about mass congestion downtown with 1 lane in the summer other than those isolated events. The plan, as we established it in the summer, we keep the 1 lane, but we establish a 5-foot shoulder for bikes, and then there's the barrier, and then the rest of the area is available for dining. If I understand Alderman Clemens' suggestion or idea is that the barrier, I guess, would be placed outside the 2 lanes to protect that what is currently a parallel parking area. That we had discussed that at times. I think the concern there just is available width. The barriers are 2 feet in width at the bottom. Under normal conditions, we have the 2 10-foot travel lanes in each direction. We have a 4-foot bike lane. Then we have about an 8-foot parallel parking space. So if we were to put that barrier within the 4-foot bicycle shoulder, that takes away from bicycle accommodation on Main Street. If we were to put it in the 8-foot parallel parking space, then you're only leaving 6 feet or so for dining. So, you know, that'd be a fairly narrow strip. It would also prohibit us from easily implementing ADA accessibility into those areas, because that's another thing we do each year, bring out, and DPW does do this, we bring out the ramps to get down into those areas for the people that need that accommodation. So I would be happy, Alderman Clemens also proposes a few modifications to the ordinance, one to fees, which I don't really have any opinion on, the other to in terms of the process for amendments. I would just say, and I don't have no objection to that, his suggestion is that early in the spring, everything is vetted and we have a plan and we implement it, and great. What's happened in the past is we've tried to implement it, or we have implemented it, and then we get a call, you know, this restaurant has decided they don't want to do it, or they do want to do it, and so there's been minor modifications to be made. In one case, a building owner wanted a spot that they could, you know, pick up, drop off, and they owned a building that had restaurant uses in it. So unless they got their space accommodation or retained one of the parallel spaces, they weren't going to allow for the dining use. So there's been a few things like that which we've implemented quickly in the summer, as you're aware, and I certainly don't take any issue with, but there's fewer meetings of the Board of Aldermen and infrastructure. So in this draft for this year, we had sought some additional flexibility in making minor modifications. But certainly if we can alter to a plan where everything's set up earlier in the spring before setup and it's a go, no go, and fine, we can do that. And then if there are changes, just everybody needs to recognize that those may take longer to implement because we may have to wait for the various meetings to occur to implement those. So with that, I'd be happy to address any questions related to traffic. And if you want to do deep dive in traffic, Senior Traffic Engineer Wayne Husband is here.
Well, first things first is you have another plan that you're working on, correct?
So this plan, well, what's before you as part of this ordinance proposal is essentially the plan that was out there last year.
Okay.
The only tweak this last year was we were doing some work at Bicentennial Park next to USA Chicken. So at one point in time, we allowed some parking where this shows a dining area because they really weren't using it for outdoor dining, but they really needed the benefit of that while our construction entrance was kind of blocking a couple spots. So we made that accommodation. But other than that, what you see on the plans that are attached to the ordinance is the layout that we did this last year. I think we're proposing the same thing. At various times, we've been asked to look at different ideas, angle parking, various things on Main Street, just consideration. Some of those things, the angle parking on Main Street, we view as something that needs to be a more thought out, permanent sort of a plan. The issue is it wouldn't be easier for us to stripe angle spots and then take them away seasonally, for instance, right? Or if you implement angle parking, the crosswalks would be shorter cross travel ways, but the bump outs wouldn't be where you wanted them because they'd be blocked by some of that angle parking. So we've looked at various ideas. Some of those go to the longer term Imagine Nashua plan, permanent implementation of a different plan downtown. Not something that we can do easily seasonally. So no, the plan before you is last year's plan in all intents and purposes.
Okay. Because we did do a modification change, if you remember. Were you here with Peddler's Daughter?
Yeah, I was. I was here at the outset of this plan. The first year, we did have barriers at Peddler's Daughter, and we did see significant traffic congestion. And
Yeah.
so in Wayne's and my assessment, it was driven by that construction point at Peddler's Daughter. So unfortunate for them, we recommended that they not be included in the plan, and I think that's really helped traffic flow much better. So there's been a few of those type of changes, and as I said, it was kind of evolved over time to the point that now we have a plan that's we feel comfortable with.
And so that the public knows, when you put the barriers out on the street, even though somebody may not be using or decide not to get involved with the outdoor dining, is to correct the traffic flow and to maintain it. Because other than that, we have cars diving in the wide area and shooting out and everything else. And
That's correct. So we've established points along Main Street where we reduce to the one lane. And once we do that restriction, we want to hold that restriction all the way through the extent of the outdoor dining area because we don't want the hourglass effect where people try to zoom around somebody and that sort of thing with the widening and the narrowing.
I like that, hourglass effect.
Yeah, so you've seen that some places we have just individual section of barriers, and that's just to establish that lane closure through the length of the outdoor dining area.
And the other thing, like in the comment, when we purchased the barriers, we got a real good price on them.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did.
I wouldn't say we got them for a steal, but we got a real good price. So the city has others that are hanging around, and they're able to put it up because the crew's available to do such as in the example of the Tinker Road example, But that's not really too much of the norm, But there are products out there that are more aesthetically pleasing, but these are safe.
Yeah, that's correct. So the first year, we need to implement something quickly, and what do we know as traffic engineers? We know barriers. So that's we did bid that out, and As you said, I think we received very favorable pricing, and we purchased a bunch of them. Subsequent years, we painted them to make them look a little nicer. But yeah, there has been discussions about, and the proposed ordinance, as revised, does include some flexibility in terms of the type of barrier that we implemented. We talked about things like, big concrete flower pots, or things that would do the same thing, provide some crashworthiness, but maybe be more aesthetically pleasing. The issue with those sorts of things simply is the cost, and what that would cost. And so we're open to further discussing ideas like that. But essentially, the plan with the closure areas as outlined is what we would propose continuing, unless we want to have a discussion about any of those alterations.
Okay. Seems like others would like to speak, so first is members of the committee, Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you very much. Can you remind me again when we changed the flow of traffic on Water Street to one direction? When are we doing that?
So when the board approved that?
Yeah.
I don't remember. It was probably more than a year ago. We haven't actually implemented that change. It's still two-way on Water Street.
Right.
But we will be moving to the one-way. We're in the process of, as you know, building the riverfront project. So during that time, we kind of need the two-way traffic. At times, we've had deliveries, cranes, offloading barge pieces and taking them away and things like that. So that legislation is enabling, but we haven't implemented it. I view us doing that once that riverfront construction is further along, maybe towards the end of next year or summer after.
Have a follow-up, please?
Follow-up. Yes.
How do you, understanding that we don't have a date yet, but if you were to put that dynamic on top of the seasonal outdoor dining, do you see any effect on that once that changes?
That's all been studied. So we had done a downtown circulation study. We hired a consultant to do that, VHB, a well-known consultant, and so they had done that, I think, back in around 2015, and we had that updated about a year ago. So that's all been studied, and what they find is that there's traffic capacity to make all those changes still. When COVID happened, traffic reduced quite a bit, and it's bounced back some, but it hasn't bounced back to the full point that it used to be. So it kind of added in some capacity to do some things, change some things. That there is a contemplation for quite a few traffic changes around downtown. That's one of them. But no, having Water Street be one way won't have much of an impact. The one-way direction is from Main Street towards Factory Street. I think that provides nice relief. If you do want to bypass Main Street property, you can go on Water Street and get around that way. And we do see that utilized quite a bit, especially during outdoor dining. I think, as Liz mentioned, there's about a 10% shift. I think more people take that first turn and divert during that period of time, and maybe other times of years they don't. So, but no, it has all been studied, and all those studies show that things work with the various scenarios that we're contemplating in the future.
Okay. Can I have one more, please?
One more.
You mentioned, Alderman O'Brien, in your comments about the cost, the actual cost of the barriers. I'm left to guess that you said we got them for a steal, we got them for a good price. Is that to assume we got them for free, or did we buy them?
20,000.
How much?
20.
20. Okay.
Let me put it this way, Alderman Sullivan. Nothing's free in this world.
I know, but I'm not in the market.
Do we get them for
concrete barriers, so I have
discount
no idea what a
pricing?
good
Yeah,
price
the answer is yes.
So just wanted to see. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Yeah. We made out good for the taxpayers on
Well,
that.
that's fantastic news. Thank you.
Yeah. Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, so when we originally bought the barriers, we bought for the original configuration, and the last configuration this past year, we didn't use all of them. And that's why there are extras available that are painted that color that we took about 9 months to figure out which color to use. And those ones that are being used on Tinker Road, being the Ward 2 Alderman, those are only temporary until we get the material in, probably in the spring, to replace all of that barriers. So they were available, they were sitting at the landfill, and they used them to, for safety.
Yeah, all correct points made, yes, sir.
Okay, other members not members of the committee? Okay, we'll go right down the line. I know, because I'm looking at you, Alderman Clemmons, I understand you may have a shirt pocket amendment you may want to introduce?
Well, I'd like to ask a couple questions if I could.
Okay, allowed then. Go ahead.
Thank you. So in your comments, Mr. Hudson, you mentioned that, and actually this is almost what I had contemplated in the maybe proposed amendment. We'll see how this goes. But can you walk me through again? You said, so there'd be two 10-foot lanes, and then if you put the Jersey barrier down, there would be 6 feet room from the edge of the barrier to the edge of the sidewalk. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. If we put the barrier within the parallel parking lane, which is 8 feet, the barrier takes 2 feet, so that'll leave 6 feet between the curb and the bottom of the face of the barrier.
And does that leave a bike lane or no?
That would keep the current pattern, which is the 4-foot shoulder that we've been able to establish. When we repaved Main Street, we narrowed up the lanes and we were able to widen what was a 2 to 3 foot shoulder to a 4-foot shoulder to better accommodate bicycles. So that would basically keep the travel lanes and the shoulder the same as all other points of time. It would just encroach upon the parking area.
Would it, I mean, is it safe to say that you could take a foot off of that and in one direction and leave 7 feet the other way and have a 3-foot bike lane, or would you not recommend doing that?
I personally wouldn't recommend that
Okay.
because bike lanes are, like in the summer when we put the barriers out and we have the lane we provide 5 feet, we really would like to provide a 5-foot minimum bike shoulder. Plus, now that shoulder's up against a hard barrier versus other things. So I wouldn't recommend reducing that with the barrier. Some places, lots of places that do outdoor dining within the parallel parking, it's a whole different scenario where the restaurants secure their spot for the summer and they build their own platform, basically at grade with the rest of the sidewalks, basically extending the sidewalk. But that's a different type of treatment, and in that case, you don't have that. You have whatever they build for the dining to enclose the dining, but you don't have such a physical barrier right next to the traffic. So,
Follow up?
Yeah, yes, so, okay, so we're talking about, so it would essentially be 6 feet for the restaurants in those spaces on Main Street, which is actually what I had envisioned in my head as it being, which is why, as you mentioned, the fees, I actually, in that memo, had suggested we lower the fees on Main Street. But my other question to you is more pointed, and that is that doable? Is that plan doable to have 2 lanes in each direction?
yeah, putting the barrier in the parking space, leaving the 6 feet, that's certainly doable. That's 100% doable. The question, which is a question I can't answer, is how valuable is that remaining space to the restaurants?
Mm-hmm.
And as noted, we wouldn't be able to provide the ADA accommodation into those areas, although I'm not sure that's necessary. That's something we have to review in more detail.
So, yeah, with that being said, I mean, I would, if somebody on the committee would entertain a motion to, and I had the memo up, and of course I lost it.
Do you want a copy?
No, I have it.
If it's helpful to, I can speak to what some of the restaurants have said about potentially narrowing that space into just the parking spaces.
Please do.
So I've spoken with several of the restaurants, especially the ones that are larger spaces. And they mostly have 4 tops at this point. And if they narrow it down to 6 or 7 feet, then they'd have to purchase all new furniture to be 2 tops rather than 4 tops. And it's not half the amount of cost in terms of staffing and cleaning and all of those things. And so they were really hesitant to participate in that scenario. So some of the restaurants, though, especially those that are absolutely reliant on the additional capacity, they would do anything to keep that capacity. So we have a range of business owners that either need it and would do whatever we, participate whatever we decide to move forward with. And then there are that would choose not to.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. So, my amendment would be in section 32092 would be, it would say the following streets shall be reduced in vehicle lane size to accommodate outdoor dining as designed in the 2024 year plan, and that would be Temple Street, Factory Street, East Pearl Street, and West Pearl Street. And then it says there shall be 2 lanes open to vehicular traffic in each direction on Main Street. The placement of barriers along Main Street shall be consummate with the number of spaces each business adopts on a yearly basis. And so that would be the amendment to change that language.
Okay, Ms. Hammond.
If somebody would,
I'll make that. Do you want to forward it to me again so I can?
yes.
Ms. Hammond, can you give us your interpretation of the Clemmons Amendment?
Yeah, I suppose I think it's an option, but I do think that from the business perspective that because they've had 3 years with much bigger space, that they will probably, most of them will not likely participate because they will not be, they will have half of the revenue potential with not half of the cost to them as business owners. So I would personally not recommend the Clemmons Amendment and stick with the product that we've created. Spent several years kind of narrowing down and perfecting, but it is still an option.
Okay, I have one for you, Ms. Hammond. The state collects a room and meals tax. So, by narrowing and maybe some restaurants not participating, can the city anticipate a financial loss in the collection of the room and meals tax from the state?
Based on our empirical data from our GPS, I'm not sure that we can narrow down who's eating outside and who's eating inside. But anecdotally, I can say that we probably have a lot more people that in the summer want to eat outside. Personally, I love eating outside during the summer, so I think that anecdotally we can see some increase in revenue, but we do not have empirical data for that.
Okay. Alderman Clemmons.
I just want to make sure that Alderman Clee got the wording.
I did.
Okay.
Which starts with effective from 12:01 a.m. May 1st. That's the message you just sent me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We have an amendment from Alderman Clee.
Okay. So the amendment is effective from 12:01 a.m. May 1st through midnight October. So I have to have the actual one in front of me first. Let me put the I know which one, what part I'm changing here.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're right in this one, though.
Yes, I know. That's okay. So I'm changing 320-92 to read, effective from 12:01 a.m., May 1st through midnight, October 15th, every year beginning May 1st, 2025, the following streets shall be reduced in vehicular lane size to accommodate outdoor dining as designed in the 2024 year plan: Temple Street, Factory Street, East Pearl Street, and West Pearl Street. There shall be 2 lanes open to vehicular traffic in each direction on Main Street. The placement of the barriers along Main Street shall be consummate with number of spaces each business adopts on a yearly basis. Section 320-93 Plan Amendment.
That was, you could leave.
Okay,
that one.
I'm sorry. So just leave that section. That would be the next section. Okay. So this is a change to section 320-92, effective dates and plans. Is that
Okay,
correct?
May I speak
And
to the
any
amendment?
committee members have any questions on that?
I'd like to
Well,
speak
can I
to
speak to the amendment?
Yeah, well, it's got to be open so everybody can speak to the
Seeing that
amendment.
it says
But
amendment.
I just wonder, as it was verbally written, read by the clerk, does everybody have their understanding, members of the committee? Okay. All right, Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you.
You may now comment on your amendment.
So this does a number of things that we need to understand in this. And what it does is it makes this a permanent plan. So essentially what this does is it makes it permanent every year. It basically states what we did on the side streets stays. So, East Pearl, West Pearl, Temple, Factory, that setup as you saw it this summer stays. Getting to Main Street, it would be travel on 2 lanes, both directions, for the entire length of Main Street. And where we put the barriers on Main Street would be dependent upon which businesses decided to opt into the plan on any given year. So if a restaurant one year wanted to do it and then the next year they didn't, they would have to get, that in on time. So I was going to amend this further, but I feel like this is enough to let the administration figure out how they would want to make this work. So basically what this would do is it would be consummate with the number of spaces that each business adopts on a yearly basis. So if there was only, as Director Hannum said, if there was only a handful of businesses that wanted to participate next year that were on Main Street, then there would only be a handful of businesses that participate on Main Street next year. And, I understand that ideally, some of the businesses would rather have the wider space. They would rather have the 1 lane in each direction. But I think we've heard from the public, and I've heard from other business owners, that we need to do something different. We need to do something differently. And I think this sets a good compromise. It really does, because we're basically saying, yes, we can do something for you if you want to participate in this. And you can do that. If not, then we're just going to let things be as they were before the pandemic. And I think that's what the public wants, because the main focus has been Main Street and not necessarily the side streets. I think the barriers on the side streets work very well. And so, the focus for this amendment is on Main Street. So, thank you.
Discussion on the motion, Alderman Thibodeau.
Well, she's on the committee, so I would let her go first.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be very honest. I am in favor of Alderman Clemens' motion. I am not in favor of the plan as it's been put forward. I will vote against the continuing with last year's plan. So for the restaurants that feel that they can't shrink down, and for me, it's a shrink down or nothing. So a compromise is the only thing in my book. I hear the both chiefs, and I agree with them that there has not been any issue. I personally do think there has been some congestion on Main Street as far as traffic. I drive on Main Street, but I also think that there's congestion on Main Street all the time anyways. I've been recently driving on Main Street because I go to CVS daily for my husband, and I'm constantly in traffic. So there's just congestion on Main Street, period. But I think this would stop that controversy by having all these lanes open. That's one less thing for someone to complain about. So I think this is a good compromise. I think it, but there'll always be something for somebody to complain about. I think this is a good compromise. I think it brings us this, but there are going to be people who are just going to hate it anyways. We're never going to make everybody happy. So for me, this compromise is something I'm willing to support this. If the Main Street of these 4 lanes don't go through, I'm willing to support just putting it on the side streets. But I'm not willing to support it as it is right now, what's being put forward as without the amendment. So I hope that we can at least compromise and come up with an amendment. So, thank you.
We're gonna go in order because we waited for a while. Alderman Thibodeau.
Tebow.
Thibodeau, yes.
I only correct you because we have another one that's his name. Otherwise, I'd just let it go.
It's not my name.
Otherwise, I'd let it go. All right, so, I mean, I've had a lot to say. I still wanted to question Mr. Hudson on some of this stuff before the amendment came out and kind of put everything in a whirlwind. You know, to Alderman Clee's question, no matter what you do, there's going to be a complaint. We could take down everything, and then somebody's going to complain that we don't have barriers. So to listen to a select few people who think things are just okay aren't going to come to the chamber and say, they're fine, they're good, I have no problem. People who hate things are going to come, and a lot of times bring myths with them. We've already dispelled one myth. And there's a couple things, right? So I heard it cost a couple $100,000. That's what I heard today in public comment. I saw on Ms. Hannum's thing that it cost $46,000. So that's a big difference in money, huge difference. And we talked about money last night and what a small amount can do and a larger amount can do. And so that's again, it's a small drop. So come to say that, you know, take that $46,000 and put it back in the tax rate, and all of a sudden everybody's taxes go down is a myth. I wish people would just come and say, I hate the barriers, because that's really the case. That's really the problem. Now, so one thing, I will not support this when it comes to the full board. I will make an amendment to get rid of the barriers on Main Street and just have them on the side street. I will not support it like this. No way. You're gonna have to convince me somehow. So I will get rid of the ones on Main Street. That will be my amendment, and I will just keep them on the side streets. Because the side streets are smaller, they do need a little bit more room for those restaurants. You know, we can ask Ms. Hannum later. She can ask, you know, when she talks again, she can bring it up. But we heard restaurants don't want these. That's what I heard again. So I would like somebody either to make that myth true or dispel that myth. So Ms. Hannum can do that in a minute. But I want to talk to Mr. Hudson and maybe Mr. Husband too on this. So if there is a major catastrophe on the highway, what's the chance that Main Street's going to be clogged up now with 2 lanes?
2 lanes or 4 lanes?
4 lanes, rather, yeah, 2 lanes on each side, 4 lanes. what would it mean? Would people going up and down there no problem, or would there be some clogging up of Main Street?
Appreciate the question. I'll have senior traffic engineer Wayne Husband talk about it, because that is an issue that he's raised previously.
If he's here, he might as well speak.
That's right, absolutely. He's going to give us money's worth.
I'm not sure I completely understood the question.
So, we were hearing earlier that there was that one major problem on the highway, an accident or something, and that when we had the barriers, Main Street got clogged up on that particular time of day. If we had a major accident now, when there's 4 lanes, would Main Street still get clogged up, or would it be, smooth sailing?
Well, I mean, I think there's going to be, at times, there may be disruptions on Main Street when there's, like a major accident.
Right, it doesn't matter if there's 4 lanes or 2 lanes. There's going to be a problem if there's a major highway accident.
Right. We've done a lot with the barriers. I don't think that we've spoken to the fact that with the Main Street, we redid all the traffic signal timing and adjustments like several years ago with the CMAC project, and we got traffic flowing pretty good. But with the addition of the barriers a few years ago, we went ahead and we had one of our consultants coming in and assist us with doing different signal timing and adjustments for the 2 lanes of traffic with the barriers in place. So we switched the traffic signal timing and adjustments for each scenario. So we do the best we can to promote the continuous progression of traffic on Main Street. But to answer your question, as far as accidents will occur, and you will have, yeah.
Yeah, what you tend to see is 4 lanes has more capacity than 2 lanes, obviously. So what happens is you're going to see congestion. It's the duration of congestion. That event will impact for longer if there's fewer lanes than there's more lanes. But yeah, you can't take all the traffic on the highway and put it on Main Street and have the same level of function. That you are going to have those disruptions when there's a major event.
Follow-up?
Follow-up.
So, that being said, if you have an accident in the south end, Daniel Webster Highway is clouded up, people take a different route. So that's going to happen. Those one-offs are going to happen. I drive Main Street too, all the time. I'm here during the day, during the week. I'm here at night during rush hour. I'm here at night after rush hour. I'm here on the weekends. I go to the library. I go to the hospital. All my doctors are on Main Street. So I spend a lot of time on Main Street. And I hate traffic. Hate it. Despise it. But I don't feel like I'm waiting 40 minutes to get through Main Street. So can you tell me, when the barriers are up and the barriers are down, what is the minute change to that traffic? It's now going to be more of a 10-minute wait to get through, or is it going to be a 5-minute, or going to be a 30-minute? How does the barriers change the amount of time people have to wait for traffic down on Main Street?
Yeah, I'll let Wayne speak to this a little bit, because I know at different times of year he's driven the corridor back and forth, try to get a sense. I don't think we have. He can speak to it. I don't think we have a bunch of data where we've done those studies, but clearly it's going to take longer. But it doesn't seem like it's significantly longer. You still have the stops for pedestrians crossing the road, activating the crossings at the signals. So all those same things still happen, take up the same amount of time. Yeah, so my sense is it's not a lot different, probably a little bit longer. Do you have anything to add, Wayne?
Well, yeah, and I think this may be partially the answer to your question on accidents too, is the fact that, obviously before the barriers went in, we did, over the years we've done a lot of modeling of what we projected, like what the traffic would be on Main Street prior to the installation of the barriers. And, part of the problem with modeling traffic is that traffic isn't static, it's dynamic. I mean, when you take traffic and you put the barriers in place for the downtown dining, what happened is that the people that want to go north and south on Main Street, from a commuter perspective, found alternative routes around the city. That's what they did. And there's less traffic on Main Street when the barriers are in place. I mean, that's just human behavior, and that's, the same with accidents. If there's an accident on DW Highway, you're going to see it on Main Street. And we've seen it in the past when they had turnpike construction was done to Main Street, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, while the amendment might be a viable option, the one thing that concerns me this evening is not a single restaurant here. No one. And this is presumably to benefit them. And they're not here advocating one way or the other. And if we're going to change the way things are going to be done, we have no idea how it's going to impact them. So unless we have input on the amendment from the restaurants, I can't support it. And it concerns me that I think, I could be wrong, but I think some of the restaurants, not all of them probably, but some of the restaurants have reconsidered and don't want to do it. Last summer, there were a lot of vacancies out at the tables because it was so hot. Nobody's going to sit outside to eat if it's 90 degrees in the shade. The other thing that affects outdoor dining is rain, if it's rain. So, I mean, it's a sort of a crapshoot for them from a revenue standpoint as to how many days that they can actually do outdoor dining. The other thing that concerns me is we have a master plan that talks about expanding the sidewalks and doing more outdoor dining on the sidewalks. But I don't see a plan as to where that's being implemented anytime soon. So how long are we going to be doing these barriers? If we don't have a plan as to when we're going to eliminate them and go to something else, I have a concern with that. And so I just think that if we're going to change the way things are done, we better have some input. Otherwise, we may either be shooting the whole thing in the foot to begin with, or the restaurants may say, no, we can't do it that way. I came in sort of, a lot of the input I've had from my constituents is that they want it to cease. I like outdoor dining. I've done it downtown, but I tell you, I don't like the noise and the environment of trying to eat in the middle of a traffic jam. But the sidewalk dining is fine. We talked about increasing the size of the sidewalks so that outdoor dining is even more prevalent. But that's on a piece of paper. I don't see any plan as to when it's going to be implemented and where the cost is going to be incurred. So I have concerns. I'm not going to support the amendment now because I have no idea how it would impact the people that are involved. You know, and so.
I was going to say, I can speak to the business input. I did have that conversation with them because I knew, one, they're getting very tired of the conversation, and so showing up regularly, I think, is hard on them, especially since they're open at this time. But as I mentioned before, some of them will participate in whatever way they can, because this program is helping them survive. Others, especially those with the larger locations, are not in favor of the amendment because they think it's going to be more cost than what their revenue potential would be with those much smaller locations. So I think that there is not a monolith of response to the amendment. But I would say that the places that are the busiest are not in favor of the amendment. So that is what I've spoken with most of the business owners, the restaurant owners rather. There are a few that did not respond, but I think that in general we have two different forms of support. So it's going to be up to you guys, I think.
Alderman Jettie.
Thank you. So I have some questions for Mr. Hudson and probably Mr. Husband. But so You know, I was surprised to hear you say, talk about the bike lane on Main Street, because in the past, every time we've talked about the bike lane on Main Street, we've been corrected and told it's not a bike lane, it's an open your door lane. But now you're saying with the repaving and the restriping, we now have bike lanes on Main Street?
Well, the opening the door is a concern, obviously, with the parallel parking. So it's a 4-foot wide area that provides some buffer from traffic to the parking that I'm sure some bikes will use. Is it an ideal bike lane? No, it is not. Is it better than it was with a 3-foot going to a 4-foot? Yes, it is, in my opinion.
Okay, well, so it's wider
We have not put up signs that say this is a bike lane. We haven't called it a bike lane. It's a shoulder that bikes will use. Some bikes will use.
Okay, but it's wider than it used to be?
It is. It's 1 foot wider than it used to be.
Okay. So I was surprised when you say that, you know, you've not heard any complaints about traffic as a result of the barriers, because I've heard a lot. You know, a lot of people have complained. I don't know, I'm not saying that they're justified in their complaints, but, you know, I've received a lot of complaints. I've received a lot of emails, people saying that with the barriers, traffic is a lot more difficult. It takes a lot longer to get down Main Street. So I'm surprised that you know, I guess people just don't know enough to call you and to tell you that, but.
In the early years of the programs, we certainly got those type of complaints. I'm just saying in the last, since the plan has pretty much been the same the last couple of years, that's tempered. I'm not saying we haven't gotten any complaints. All the complaints don't necessarily reach me, but sure, I'm sure there are people. On the day when the highway they had an issue on the highway, I got calls that day, for sure. But in general, no, we're not getting regular calls about complaints about the traffic on Main Street during the dining.
I know when we eliminated the barriers in front of Peddler's Daughter, that went a long way in improving the northbound traffic on Main Street. Now, when Factory Street, when Water Street becomes one-way, and so all the traffic that, you know, currently traffic going east down Factory Street, they can either take Water Street or go to Factory Street and take a left on Main Street. So that's going to, that traffic is all going to be on Factory Street now. So the Factory Street traffic is, the amount of traffic that's going to be going down traffic to make that left turn is going to, you know, theoretically double. And you seem to think that the studies have shown that there's enough capacity on Main Street to make that left turn with that added traffic? Because right now, you know, I've experienced it myself. You know, you can get stuck at that light at the corner of Factory and Main Street, trying to make a left turn, and the northbound traffic, you know, in some times does not allow you to make your left turn. You're waiting to make your left turn, and then, you know, unless you know, some people aggressively go into the grid and block the grid in order to make their left turn. So I hope that you're correct about the capacity of Main Street to accommodate that. I'm concerned about that, but in that same intersection, currently you have planned, you know, this summer, and the plan continues. In the northbound lane, of Main Street, as you approach Temple Street, There's no dining there, there's an apartment building, but there are barriers to block off that right lane so that the traffic is limited to one northbound lane. And someone spoke to us at the last meeting and talked about, wouldn't it be possible to remove those barriers so people trying to make a right turn onto Temple Street, could have that right turn lane there to get off Main Street, as opposed to having to stay in the one northbound lane until they get to Temple Street and to make that right turn. I'm not a traffic engineer, but it seems like it would be kind of a little bit of a relief. It would allow more traffic to get off Main Street, make that right turn, and get out of the way of the northbound traffic. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but
Yeah, you are. Yeah, that's come up before. It's just a matter of, as I said before, it creates a long stretch there where there isn't any barriers. So there's a potential somebody tries to get around somebody. If we redesignate it as a right turn only during those periods of time, then and put up a lane use sign accordingly, perhaps that would work that way and provide additional capacity. But then at the end of the season, we'd be taking that back out, and I don't know that I'd have to go review that. I'm not sure if that would add enough capacity to really make a difference and make it worthwhile, I guess would be the point. But that could be a change that could be implemented, sure.
there are dining barriers in front of Tostao's.
Yep.
So that the distance from there to the Temple Street is not that great.
Yeah.
So if that's something that you could look at, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
So I don't know if Mr. Husband has anything else to say about the Factory Street, when Water Street becomes one way, making that.
He may, and I'll just I hadn't responded to that part of your question because you're posing the next question, but as I said, there's a study for downtown that contemplates a kind of a reconfiguration and involves a bunch of things. It involves reversing West Pearl Street. It involves potentially reversing Factory Street and a number of other things. So the plan's been modeled by VHB. They have looked at that issue. Will it make that left turn more difficult? Yes, there would be more traffic there. I'm not saying that it would be better than it is. It would probably be a little bit harder than it is currently if we make no other change other than reversing Water Street, okay? Because that traffic would be moved over there. But in the scenario when we have West Pearl Street reversed, some of that left turn that goes all the way down there to Factory and Water might happen at West Pearl at Main. So you could model as a million different scenarios. It's kind of tough. So if there's any individual specific change you want to look at, that's something that we potentially can look at. But no, you're correct. If all we do is make Water Street one way and not change anything else, that the traffic will move to Factory Street, and that left turn will get harder. Take longer.
And it would just make common sense.
Alderman Jettie, I'm going to have to stop you, and the reason is the pending question is the Clemens motion. And we don't seem, with some of your questions, although legitimate and most certainly need to be answered by traffic, can be held at another time. What is before this committee, though, sir, is the Clemens motion. Okay, so I gave you some leeway, but if you can grant me the courtesy, and I will ask if you don't mind, if we can get back to the Clemens motion. And I think next in the queue is Alderman Thibodeau.
Thank you. Just to be clear with the ordinance, the way it's written, it's anywhere between 95 and 115,000 a year. So that's the estimated
cost to the citizens. And unless we're doling out 113 spots at $1,000 apiece, the citizens are eating the lion's share of that one way or the other. I like, if it's going to pass, I like Alderman Clemens' plan, because there are people that just don't like it, and there are people who, their main complaint is the traffic and having the 2 lanes in each direction. That being said, what Liz Hannon was saying, if the majority of the restaurants are not interested any longer, there's almost no point in even having these conversations any further. So that's at the moment, that's all I had, since Alderman Clemens' motion is on the table.
Okay, next I have Alderman Senate, and then, well, actually Alderman Sullivan is a member of the committee.
fine.
I'm
So
fine with that.
you
No,
can,
I'm
you.
okay.
You are on the committee, I'm
All right,
fine with
thanks.
that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So to the maker of the motion, I did have a question. Did you say that the placement of the barriers was going to be permanent going forward? So it's not a 3-year, it's now permanent?
You may answer. Thank you.
Yes, so the way that the motion is written is that the barriers on the side streets would be permanent. So on Main Street, they would be year to year consummate with whatever restaurants decided to either opt into the program.
Yeah, okay. And a follow-up, please?
Follow-up.
And would the barriers that we use both on Main Street and the side streets, would they be the same barriers that we're using now, the concrete barriers?
If I could answer that, yeah, I mean, I would assume they would be at least now. Whether or not they change in the future, I think that would be a different discussion and probably a budget discussion.
Yeah, so you would envision the barrier to be placed on, this is on the Main Street corridor. The edge that faces out towards the traffic, that leading edge would be right on the edge of the parking spot. That's as far out as it would go.
Actually, it would be, so that bike lane that was discussed, it would actually be on the edge of the bike lane, on the inside edge of that, which
Okay.
would then allow another 6 feet from the edge of the barrier to the edge of the sidewalk.
Okay, and we're gonna keep it at $1,000 a spot?
That's what it is right now, at least,
Okay.
with the motion in front of us.
And just a comment to Director Hannum's commentary before. In regards to the restaurants, you use the word some, you use the words a few. You know, one of the big things that just I think about with this, and I know we can't do it, but I just keep thinking to myself that, you know, the restaurants want it really bad, some of them do. Again, there I am saying it, some of them, I don't know. Is some 2, is some 5? I don't know what some means. But I just say, you know what, open your books. I want to see year-to-year comparisons on revenue that you're driving with that, if this is how bad you want it. You know, I don't think that's, you know, that's proprietary information. I don't think that's worthy, but, you know, I just would like to see a little bit more data around that. And then when you mention the fact that, well, you know, a few of the main restaurants wouldn't do it if we followed this amendment, then I'm just left to think, okay, well, I know the big restaurants downtown, and I'm thinking, well, they won't do it, but I don't know that, because I'm just left to guess. So I didn't know, could we put more specifics to this and try to
Sure. Yeah.
dial
So
that in a
I can
little
try
bit
to.
more?
I can try to put more specifics. Every restaurant that I spoke with wants the barriers. They want extended outdoor dining, but they want it as a proposed, not as amended. So they're not in favor of the amendment. However, some of the restaurants that I spoke to did say if the amendment passes and this is all they get, they will participate. So I'm going to say 4 of the 11 restaurants that I spoke with would participate even at the smaller level. And 5 of 11 have said that they probably would not participate. However, this is their just conjecture at this point. They're kind of honestly tired of the conversation, so they just want to know what they get and what they don't, and then they'll figure out if they're going to participate. So I think that those 5 that have said that they're not interested may turn out to be interested if it goes through. But I will posture that we've asked for several experts in the fields to join us tonight, and they have all said that the current configuration works. And so I would propose that we stick with the ordinance as proposed. I know that this sounds like a compromise with the amendment, but there's only one party that's compromising here. It's the restaurants. If you still have 4 lanes of traffic, no one else is compromising. And I would again posture that because people want to get through downtown faster, we're not moving towards our destination downtown. We're continuing to have a highway through Main Street. And so I would say that the people that are opposed to Main Street because it slows them down, those are the people that we want to find alternate routes around Main Street, because we want traffic to be slower so that it's safer for pedestrians. We want more people outside so that people can see activity going on. That's how we get closer to that Imagine Nashua master plan. So that would be my spiel. My recommendation is to continue with the existing proposal.
Could I just comment on that, please?
Yes, you may.
And I'm undecided on the amendment. There are things I like, things I don't know. But I think just going back to Director Hannum's point on the master plan, I look at, any city, Nashua specifically, is it's a journey, it's a story. I think that the expanded outdoor dining, as we've seen it over the past few years, is really a chapter down the road. And I think that we're in an earlier chapter of where we are. We're going to get to it, but I think that there needs to be some development ahead of that. And, to your point about, keeping Main Street the way it is, I think the returns have come back on that the public, from what I'm seeing and hearing, not just here, but in my inbox and in conversations I'm having, they don't like it. For whatever reason, they don't like it. Maybe it's the traffic, maybe they don't look good, maybe this, maybe that, but the common denominator is that they don't like it. And I can appreciate that we're trying to work with the public on a compromise, because that's the other piece. That's the party I think we're compromising. I mean, if the restaurants have to give, and then we give into the restaurants, well, then the public, that from where I sit, overwhelmingly are not in favor of this. So that's the compromise that I think is in front of us. I still remember, it rings around in my head. I went to one of the rezone meetings last May up at the Hunt Building, and the guy that led the session, the guy that we hired, the consultant, he said, "Oh, I went to eat out last night," and he said, "Those barriers, is that the best you guys can do?" And I thought, wow, this is a consultant that we hired to relook at our city, and that's what he said. And I was taken aback by that. And I also had a sidebar conversation with a commercial realtor here in the city, And every time I see him, he said, when are those expletive barriers going away? And this is a businessman who's trying to market and sell real estate in downtown Nashua. So the returns are in from where I sit. So wherever this, I don't know where I'm going to go on this amendment at this point, but just overall the feeling. So I just wanted to get that out. Thanks.
Alderman Senate, thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on this amendment and on the topic in general. I'll probably say a couple things that kind of come off as maybe surprising or weird as sometimes 2-3 years ago, however long it was, sometimes the only guy sitting out there coming up here saying, yeah, do it. Give it a try. I was a pretty strong advocate for this a couple of years ago when the first 3-year plan came up. But in those 3 years and having an opportunity to see it in action, I think that Alderman Clemens' amendment inches us a lot closer to the reality of what's going on down there than what we would like to see. I'm not an expert. I'm a numbers guy, not necessarily a data guy. But I hear about the returns and who's coming down and where, one side really says, well, it's working, it's filling out. And maybe I'm missing the sweet spot, I don't know. But other than, I think, Alderman Lopez, I might be the other alderman that lives basically downtown. I'm there daily, and I'm not seeing it. You can tell me a story here with data and numbers, but it's not matching what I'm seeing. What I am seeing is that there's a couple of power players who I won't throw under the bus here that are making this work for them. Usually they're the ones that are putting in a lot of extra work for it and making it an extension of their business. And the fact is, possibly the strongest power player outside of one on Main Street is on the side streets. One of the other realities that I think we could all agree on here is that anytime we get a phone call or an email or see a Facebook message about this, nobody's saying, I hate going down West Pearl Street, I hate going down East Pearl Street, I hate going down Temple Street. They're saying, I hate turning onto Temple Street, as Alderman Jetty pointed out earlier, and as somebody who lives down that way, I also hate that turn onto Temple Street when the barriers are up. It's Main Street. That's where the focus is, and Alderman Clemens' amendment here, I think, takes what we've seen over 3 years and gets us closer to that vision. Now, personally, I don't think I'm close to a yes on the topic at all. But if I were somebody who really wanted to see this continue and really wanted to see some extension of outdoor dining with some envisionment of what we'd like to see Main Street become in the future, many years down the line, then I think I would be supporting Alderman Clemens' amendment. I don't get a say in that tonight. But as somebody who used to be gung-ho for it and maybe kind of took a step back, that's the way I see it. And so if you're me 2 or 3 years ago, and that's where you're at, I'd be leaning a lot more on Alderman Clemens' amendment than I would on the plan in front of us. The plan in front of us, I can't support, period.
Alderman Dowd, Alderman Clay, then Alderman Dowd, and Alderman Thibodeau. And I want to remind you, unfortunately, the clock in the back is not showing the real time. It's 9:35. I'm here all night if you people so wish. So, Alderman Clay.
Okay, thank you, and we have to be here till we can finish. So, I am for Alderman Clemmons' motion, at least for the, definitely for the side streets as mentioned. I'm going to go back. I am for what Director Hannum has spoken about, the thinning of Main Street. I've said that from day one. Calming of Main Street, and I know we've seen emails where I can actually hear people's eyes rolls as they talk about the calming of Main Street. But the truth is, we do need calming of Main Street. We not that long ago had someone who died because he was hit on Main Street. We've had people who have been hit on Main Street and have been hurt very badly on Main Street. I can tell you that as many crosswalks as we have on Main Street, people don't use them. They come out from between the parked cars. And we have 2 lanes, and when you have someone that's in that right-hand lane, you don't know if they're double parked, you don't know if they're trying to get into a parking space, or if they've stopped because someone is coming out and the person in the left lane continues going, and then someone gets hurt because people are too lazy to use the crosswalk, even though there's so many crosswalks. But as I think people have said, they get lazy. One of the nice things about the barriers is they kind of force people to use the crosswalks. That is one of the nice things about them. But having said that, I am for calming Main Street and thinning them down and forcing people to find alternatives. Now, having said that, the problem is that we haven't put all of those alternative ways in place. So we have put the cart before the horse. That's why Alderman Clemmons' amendment is good, and that's why it's a compromise. So while I do agree with Director Hannum is saying is that she feels it's only a compromise for one side, I'm saying it's keeping extended dining alive, and that's the compromise, while we're working on getting those side streets and all the other things done. It doesn't kill extended dining, which truthfully, I think around this horseshoe, I think extended dining will die. So all of those 5 or so who are not willing to compromise, they will not have extended dining. I don't even know if Alderman Clemmons' compromise will pass. It may not. But for those 5 who say no, they will get nothing. So that is the compromise. And there may be nothing, and that's fine by me. If that's the way it goes, that's fine. I will not lose any sleep over it. I would like to still continue to see some of it on the side roads. I'd like to see that continue, because I think it could be useful, and I think it could happen there. I will not vote for the plan as it is now. So, but I will vote for the amendment. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome, Alderman Dow.
Yeah, after all the conversation that I've heard, I am going to support the amendment. And I'm going to support it because I want to hear all the comments that come in after we pass it, if we pass it. And haven't decided when we get to the full board whether whatever we end up with tonight, I'll support, because until I hear all the comments, pro and con, I won't have made up my mind, but I will support the amendment tonight.
Okay, Alderman Thibodeau.
Derek Tebow, Alderman Ward 8. Thank you.
You guys need to switch seats.
What do you face?
Just for the transcriber.
I wish I could.
Alderman Derek and Alderman Chris.
Thank you. So, certainly having 4 lanes of traffic is not going to calm the traffic. So I don't see the amendment getting us to that place. I think it sets us back. So if we're not going to continue to go forward, like I said before, when it gets to the full board, I won't support this. The only thing I would support is an amendment at that point to just do the side streets and no more barriers on Main Street, because it doesn't sound like it's going to be worth it. to drop a few barriers, because couple of restaurants, I don't think restaurants are gonna pay $1,000 for 6 feet. So again, why even anticipate that? Just go to the side streets. And I'm not even sure if I like it permanently on the side streets. There's obviously gonna be no outdoor dining in the winter, so why would we keep them there and blocking off traffic? So I don't think that's gonna calm anything. To Alderman Sullivan's comment about the contractor that said, that's the best you can do. Yeah, that's the best we can do. You know why? Because no one around this horseshoe would pay to put anything better out there. So we can't turn it back on ourselves and go, yeah, we stink. We put terrible barriers out there. Well, no one here was gonna pay for the nice, plexiglass and shining flower pots, and because it was just gonna be too much money. So yeah, that was the best we could do. Sorry, contractor. We were trying to do our best during the COVID, and I thought we did a good job altering the process in year 2. And last comment, over the last 2 nights here, we basically killed rail last night. I think we're going to kill outdoor dining as well. I think we're going to the way of where people are moving to the city and saying, okay, we don't want Nashua to evolve in the future. We either want it to keep it like it is, go backward, or just die like Lowell. And I don't want that, but that's the way we're going. And so, again, I won't support this when it gets to the full board.
Alderman Jettie.
So on the Clemens amendment, if I could ask the maker of the motion, I'm assuming that your amendment, you talk about 2 northbound lanes, 2 southbound lanes, but you intend to keep the middle turning lane, correct? And I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
in your amendment that it's clear that, so we're going to have 5 lanes, basically. I just want to make sure that that's clear in what you're, in the language that you've proposed.
I think it is only because, it specifies 2 lanes in each direction, and because of the mid-walks, you wouldn't be able to use the middle lane to shift one over or something like that, so it'd be physically impossible. Well, it wouldn't be physically impossible, but it'd be very expensive. So I would imagine that it would just be as you imagine it.
Alderman Moran.
Are you all set, Alderman Jennings?
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you. You got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think the way we have known extended outdoor dining is dead. I think that is very clear. You don't have to count votes to know that if this, as proposed, gets to the full board, it's going to die like rail did yesterday. I see Alderman Clemens coming to the rescue to modify it, to have some remnants of it, to support the businesses on the side streets, and to reduce down the issues of blocking up the extra lanes. That being said, I would also support my colleague from Ward 8's amendment if he wanted to cut everything from Main Street as well. I could go in either direction. Okay. So I just, I think it's clear that hopefully it comes out of this committee with some kind of compromise, because it seems that the flavor of this board in general now is compromise. And I just can't buy that there's no restaurants here. When legislation impacts my business, I head up to Concord and I testify. When the chairman was on his committee, I went and testified in front of his committee twice for legislation. These guys are a mild walk to come in here and make a statement of whether or not they're going to support it or not. It's just a bit frustrating. I've talked to downtown businesses as well. I've also started to notice that more and more businesses are closing during lunch hours, and I tried to go to Oddfellows the other day on a Tuesday, and it was closed. And then I left a meeting here to go to Martha's that closes at 8:30 apparently. So I'm not seeing how extra space is going to make any big difference on their financial impacts. Also, there's the, you know, these guys are paying fees for DoorDash and Uber, and they're struggling whether or not they're going to buy a different type of table if we are courteous enough to give them extra space for their customers. I find that a bit stubborn on their part. I wish they were more collaborative, and maybe they have been with Director Hannum, but I don't see any of them here to do such. And as far as the meals tax piece that we mentioned earlier, I'm getting sick and tired of subsidizing the state and putting all this extra Nashua City money into projects. Yeah, sure, it's great for Nashua, but the state just keeps taking from us, and then they eliminate other fees and taxes that they have to shift down more costs of property taxes to businesses and residents. So we're going to throw another 50, 60, whatever $1,000 to drum up more revenue for the state that we won't see again. They can deal with it on their own. The next governor is going to, they're already having revenues fall less than what they expected. So I don't think Nashua should be coming to the rescue anymore for the state. They should get what they get and not throw a fit. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
Are you looking to succeed Ward 9 from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I?
I have Alderman Thibodeau.
This is just a clarifying question to the maker of the motion. The term permanent, if the way I understood it, was permanent meaning we're not going to come back every year to discuss it. It is still a seasonal installation.
Correct.
But just not a 3-year or a 4-year window.
Correct.
Annually permanent, not permanently.
It's between, I forget what the dates, I think it was May 1st and October 15th.
Okay.
But yes, it would avoid these conversations on an annual or triannual, whatever you want to call it, basis.
Thank you.
Ms. Hammond.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of ask one thing, is that we move this forward in any direction that you decide. You know, in previous years, we were already asking the restaurants to participate at this point. And so, you know, over the last 4 months or so, we've talked about this a lot. So I'm hoping that we can make a decision that we'll recommend to the board, so that I can go to those restaurants and say what this summer is going to look like for them. So I appreciate it if you could move that forward.
That's my intention. We'll see if the good nature of this board is. Alderman Clemens, do you have something enlightening to bring to us?
Yeah, I wanted to respond to a couple of things that were said and also shed some light on my opinion. So, you know, I take exception to some of the things that were said, with all due respect to the director, that this pushes us in the wrong direction. I don't believe that. I think that this is a compromise that benefits everybody. Compromise never benefits 100% of everybody on either side of the issue, right? So the main thing that we've been hearing is that the traffic on Main Street, you can argue whether or not it exists, it's real, but in the minds of the public, I've heard, and I've overwhelmingly heard, that it is an issue, and people want 2 lanes in either direction. So we heard tonight that it is possible to have the barriers just in the parking spaces. We've heard tonight that there are some restaurants who would want to participate in that. So to me, I think this is a win-win for everybody. And one other thing to keep in mind, if there are less restaurants participating, the map will reduce, and the cost to put these out would also reduce with that.
No.
So, yes, it would, because you wouldn't have as many barriers in front. You'd only have barriers in front of the restaurants.
They direct traffic flow, Alderman.
But if
Okay,
there's
let's
two-
have the traffic engineer answer the question.
So my understanding, again, Dan Hudson, city engineer, in terms of Main Street, there wouldn't be any impact on the through traffic because it would all be in the parking space. So we wouldn't have that situation where we have to close a lane and then keep it closed. On the side streets, that'd be different. We would want to establish those with a barrier. But yeah, along Main Street, it could be, whoever wants it could get it, and we could kind of do it sporadically as it was desired.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just add that we do pay per barrier to have them replaced. So it's a little different every year depending on which restaurants participate. So if more restaurants participate, then it is a little bit more expensive, but we're talking $1,000 to $3,000 either way. So if they are, whether they're in the right of way or in the parking spaces, it probably won't affect the cost that much. But we could see up to $5,000 or $10,000.
May I continue?
You may keep in mind of the clock, please.
I will. So the other point that I wanted to make was this, that obviously this is my amendment, I support it. I hope that it goes through. I hope it passes I hope it passes here, and I hope it passes at the Board of Aldermen. If it does not, I too would support legislation. I would support amending this so it's just the side streets. I will not support one lane in each direction on Main Street. Just want to make that clear.
All right, further questions by the board? Okay, seeing none, I will call for a vote. Can the title, we will allow the clerk to read it by title only.
Okay. I don't know how to read it by title.
You read the title and then as amended.
Okay. I don't know if there's we could just say amending.
No, just as amended. The only standing amendment is the Clemens Amendment.
So we can just say amending 024-036, Section 320-92, the effective date and plans as read previously.
Okay. I will call.
Do we want to do a roll call on
Yeah,
this?
I was
Okay.
going to call a roll call vote.
Okay. Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan?
No.
Alderman Clee is a yes. Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien?
No.
You have 3 yeas and 2 noes, so that passes.
The amendment passes.
Okay. And
Now, before us
now we
is-
have to do the as amended, right? Oh, 24
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay, so that's now the 024-036 as amended. Do you want to do that also by roll call or just by voice vote?
Well, first, what we should have by decorum
Okay.
is discussion on the motion.
Okay, sorry, I apologize.
Any
We just had so much
discussion on the pending motion, ordinance as amended? Alderman Sullivan.
Just real quick, the only issue I have with it is just the permanence on the side streets. That, what I like about the other one is it's 3 years. This one is ad infinitum. That's why I didn't support it.
Okay. The chair would like to take the opportunity at this time. Those that voted in favor of the Clemens Amendment made the wife very happy. She is not a barrier girl. There's no barriers in my marriage, but anyways. When we came up with this was a concept and to discuss, there were certain things, and one of the things was safety. And you know, who is this guy to come up and say he doesn't like our barriers? I would have told him where to park his car in a Boston accent. But the thing is, they met all the safety standards, which was our mission critical one. And they have done something very good. And you got to keep in mind, the DW highway ends at exit 3. It's gone. From there up, it's Main Street. It's not a 4-lane thoroughfare. Maybe at one time, and that needs to be addressed and talked about in the future. Now, I think this may affect, and now looking at the master plan. Maybe not. We'll hold more discussions on that when we come down to it. I really didn't have a stick in the game on the barriers, but I do remember when we were coming up with the program, one thing that most of the restaurants wanted, if they were going to invest, as some of them have, into beautification of their particular restaurant, is to know that it would be back and we guaranteed them at that particular time 3 years. Now, with the Clemens Amendment, there's a distinct possibility this may not go through. So we have failed in our commitment to the business community. You know, I'm not, like I say, 100% for or against the barriers. I try to stay, as the committee chair, open-minded on it. The wife will be happy, but we'll get along with that. So any other further discussion? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. We'll go with a roll call vote.
Okay. Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan?
No.
Alderman Clee is a yes. Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
And Chairman O'Brien? Alderman
No.
O'Brien? No? So you have 3 yeas and 2 noes, and that passes.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. General discussion. Anybody got anything for the good of the board? Alderman Sullivan?
Not to start a debate.
Oh, but feel free.
But I just
The
take
engineers
Thank you, gentlemen.
I do take exception to what you said about, you know, if this goes away and then we're not doing what we're doing for the downtown businesses. I think that the city has really gone above and beyond for downtown in general. And I would, you know, there was the, you know, we did do the barriers for a few years. We'll see where it goes. But we're also investing $21 million in a downtown Riverwalk program. That's $21 million. Now, if I own a restaurant out on Amherst Street, I'm thinking, how come the city doesn't invest $21 million on Amherst Street to get more people down here? That's the question that I would be asking. So wherever this goes, it goes. But, I mean, the city did try to do it. You know, we did say in comments, and I saw it too, I didn't really see a dense outdoor dining population over the summer. But again, that's anecdotal. But that's just what I saw. So maybe it was losing its luster. I don't know. But I just take exception to your comment. I do not, oh, see, now this is what I've done. But I just want to point that out, that I think the city is doing a good amount downtown to try to perk it up a little, so.
Exception noted, but
Right.
the thing
Nothing
is.
personal.
Oh, yes. But the thing is, the way I look at it.
Sure.
Downtown, and like as a firefighter, and I'll tell you, I've seen great communities, Lowell, Lawrence. Their downtown at one time was a fearful place to thread. We have avoided that through programs like this. So, no, nothing was offensive was meant, and your exception, granted and everything else. But the thing is, why do we get into this? Why do we build a Riverwalk? Why do we put a park in? It's for the betterment of the people of the community. And somehow, everybody gravitates to a couple of places in this city, in my opinion, such as the Stone House up at Greeley Park. They gravitate to Main Street for dining and everything. And so, it depends upon the user and what the user wants to do. Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Alderman Sullivan and just sort of reiterate that, by and large, I'm a downtown guy. I like our downtown. I spend a lot of time and a lot of money in our downtown. And I would caution anybody from being so pessimistic to believe that our downtown hinges and lives and dies by the presence of barriers. And a couple of years ago in my comments, I cautioned people against reducing this idea or this project of expanded outdoor dining to the barriers. And, I made it a point at that time to continuously call it expanded outdoor dining because that's what I saw it as it was. And it was an idea and it was an opportunity to see if something could catch on. In my opinion, it hasn't. But I don't think that that's the death of our downtown. I don't think that some of the places that define our downtown are hinging and dying on these barriers either. And quite frankly, I think our downtown has a strong enough identity that some of the folks that have been down there for a considerable amount of time, they sell themselves. Institutions like Martha's sell themselves if you're Nashua or Nashua adjacent. People in Nashua know that you go to Martha's. I don't think that downtown is lost tonight or next week or whenever if this doesn't go through. We have a great downtown. We have a centerpiece of our downtown that is demonstrating success. We just have to be optimistic enough and creative enough to think here, what's the next big idea? We had an idea, we tried it. Maybe you think it worked, maybe it didn't, but Nashua's not dead because we're not going to put down some concrete barriers.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. Briefly, I don't get the opportunity to say this too often, but, right on Alderman Sullivan in his last comments. I agree with you.
Are we still recording?
The red light's on.
But to your point, this is not, we invest a lot of money in our downtown, and I think we do it for the right reasons, right? I think it's the hub of our city. We want it, when people think about, I'm coming to Nashua, we want them to think about our vibrant downtown and everything there. I do not think that whether or not we have barriers on Main Street, to the point of the previous speaker, that is going to make any difference in that going forward. So I appreciate the committee's support tonight. I hope folks will think about it when it comes to the full board, and hopefully we can get it passed in some form. But again, just wanted to take that opportunity to say I agree, Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Oh, my gosh.
Derek Tebow, Alderman Ward 8.
Alderman Jarrett, how's that?
That works. I'm not too big on titles. You can call me whatever you want. A lot of people do. I'm going to take a little bit of umbrage on what Alderman Sullivan said and maybe make some Sullivan on Sullivan crime here. I do think downtown Nashua is the heart. Any downtown of a city is the heart of the city. And coming from people who are downtown as their thing, I'm surprised because it is the hub. And I don't live downtown. I don't eat outdoors. I think it's good that people want to do that. I don't really care to eat outdoors. I don't even go down to Main Street to eat often. And I certainly don't get free dinners. I live in the South End. I care about Daniel Webster corridor, right? That's an important corridor to me. But it's not that easy to drop money and change things. There's no river right there. There's no easy way to change it, right? So I look at that and I go, we need to keep Main Street vibrant. Now, again, barrier or no barrier doesn't change that, but we still need to keep moving forward in the downtown. People always say, well, you spend so much on downtown, but you don't care about the rest of the city. That's not true. Director Sullivan will tell you, he's got zoning plans and stuff to look at the Amherst Street corridor and the Daniel Webster corridor. It's just, it takes time to do all this stuff. So, and I'm not gonna make him come up and speak or put him on the spot, but he has talked about those in planning and economic development. He has come and put plans forward to try to change zoning so they can make those corridors more vibrant. The way they're set up today, it's not as easy to do stuff that you can do on Main Street. So that's coming, and I believe it's coming, and I hope it's coming, because Daniel Webster Highway is partly in my ward. But, you know, I'm definitely gonna make an amendment to just do the corridors. I mean, just to do the side streets. I may even make an amendment to just scrap it altogether, because I don't think it's worth it at this point. So we're not, you know, the restaurants on Main Street don't wanna do it on the Main Street, maybe one or two or whatever. I think you're gonna get more dropping out than we even heard. So we're gonna do it for 3 restaurants on the side streets? Let's get rid of them. Why spend any money on it? You know, to Alderman Moran's point last night, $60,000 to drop barriers. Can we do something with the homeless for that? Can we? Well, why don't we do that? Why are we doing this? Why are we helping restaurants now? Right? You said it, they didn't come tonight. So they didn't come, take that money, put it towards welfare. So why even support this? Right? You didn't support rail. Well, this isn't helping the city in your mind either. So let's cut it out altogether, put it towards welfare of the people. Right? So I may do that, but I'm definitely amending it one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Jettie.
Thank you. I just want to point out that the Clemens Amendment does not eliminate the barriers. It gives the restaurants the choice of, you know, of taking the barriers or not, like they have now. All it does is, you know, continues the 2 northbound lanes, the 2 southbound lanes, and hopefully it provides, you know, continues to provide parking to the non-restaurant businesses on Main Street. But, you know, Director Hannum talked about how much money she says you know, this downtown, these you know, street parking space dining is adding to Nashua's economy. Well, that money's not being paid to us, it's being paid to the restaurants. And if it's profitable for the restaurants, you know, it's a business decision. If they think if she's right, if it's bringing in all this money, then they ought to be willing to you know, to take what we give them as far as you know, we're talking about eliminating 2 feet, I think, in the parking spot, parking space. You know, if they think that that's going to make it not viable for them, then they can decide not to do it. But if it's bringing in as much money as we're being told, it seems to me that they would continue to do it. But, you know, I just wanted to make that correction. Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Moran.
Oh, between me and Alderman Jettie, we get to you every time. I would also agree with all my colleagues, Alderman from 8, 5, 7, at large, and 9. I think we do a lot for. Have you spoken yet?
Not yet.
I think we do a lot for the downtown. They're getting brand-new garages downtown, as we just recently approved. They have the Performing Arts Center, which opened post-pandemic, which they're getting much more business from than they had been typically, probably more business than what these extended barriers would have done. I don't think cutting back a few feet is going to make a substantial difference on their revenue, and if it is, they probably should not be in business. That's just my opinion. And then it's a voluntary fee. I mean, what are the best things about it's a voluntary program? If you don't think you can make ends meet with it, you don't have to participate. If you think you're going to make a few bucks, I'm going to pay the fee and I'm going to make extra. I think the lack of engagement from the restaurants to come down here and speak shows that, they're ambivalent. They'll probably go along with anything we say, and they'll probably take advantage if they feel it's beneficial to their business. But to say that it's going to have a negative impact on downtown, I just completely disagree with that. I concur wholeheartedly with my colleague from Ward 9. I think that downtown gets a lot. I agree with Alderman Tebow, that I would absolutely not support this if there was a motion to send money to the Public Health Department. But that's just me. And I know my colleague is very supportive of public health in general anyways. But there are other aspects of the city that do need attention, just like in our, we're like right on the line, Alderman Tebow and I, 8 and 9 with a kid was trying to cross the street and their dad got hit by a car down on Spitbrook. We need to look at sidewalks. We need to look at pedestrian-friendly stuff in those areas. And I know we're looking at stuff through rezoning and what happens with Amherst Street, but those are neighborhoods. They're not just the retail district. People need to be able to cross the street without getting hit. If you want to go from Twin Ponds to Press Cafe, there should be an easy way to do that. But we spend so much time with downtown, and I've said this off the cuff. I think there's a downtown improvement committee. There probably should be an everywhere else committee to really hone in on neighborhoods to figure out what they really do need to also suggest back to the city and the board through volunteer members of each ward to see what would be beneficial, just as we initially did this with the barriers way back when. Thanks.
All set. All right, open it up for public comment.
Thank you, Karen Bill, 95 Parnell Place. I just want to say, Alderman O'Brien, that I am here speaking of my own volition, and no one has coerced me into coming here and making these comments, and I will reiterate that again, should it need to be said.
Thank you for that, because there's some people standing at the very same podium that have lied.
I want to correct a couple things. Cost of the barriers. Liz Hannon's numbers are inaccurate, okay? The cost of moving the barriers is $60,000 a year. This is right from our CFO this year. Reduction in parking revenue is $45,000. Reduction in parking enforcement revenue, another $8,000. And for people who thought they knew the cost of the barrier, I have the actual numbers from when the barriers were purchased, and it was 210 barriers for $21,300. And then there was another purchase because there's 2 sizes of barriers. So if you don't know to ask the question about was that the total cost of the barriers, then you would have thought it was maybe only $20,000. It was yet another $20,000 on top of the $21,300 for the initial cost of the barriers. And there are other items like allowance for miscellaneous barrier adjustment, $12,000. Maintenance of traffic allowance, $9,000. Cost traffic barrel rental per year, 40 units at $85 apiece, $3,400. So these are all costs that I have from the CFO every year. It's about $150,000 per year is right on the money. So I'm not lying. I'm not going to call the person who was downtown with her grandchild and call her a liar because she's probably watching this anyway. So to bash the people who come here and try to give accurate information, I think is appalling. I think it's demeaning.
30 seconds.
And I think that that's why you have 3 of us out of 90,000 people who come here on a regular basis, and whether, oh, we kill this or we kill that, it's deplorable how we're treated. And I have the right information, and I'm happy to share it with all of you via email. And congratulations.
Matthew Guthrie, 104 Fawn Lane in Nashua. She took my line about the, I'm here of my own volition. I thought that was gonna.
No, if you really feel that you have to go through it.
I don't. I just
The chair will allow it.
I just thought it was, I thought it was clever. And so anyway, I just wanted to speak on the slides that I saw up there. You know, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the master plan. And some of the things that I'm concerned about was the master plan was crafted on Zoom meetings during COVID-19 with extremely low participation levels. Fewer than 1% of the public participated in the master plan program. That's less than 1% over Zoom. That sample size is alarming. Many of you in this body found that Zoom was so ineffective of a communication method with the public that you removed this tool to allow the public to participate in these meetings. So why are we hanging this hat on something that's so important as the future of our city, that is so sparsely attended that we could barely recognize the data? I think we need to relook at the master plan and create a better master plan for this city. I'm not saying that the master plan is wrong. I think we can create a better master plan for this city. I also find it quite concerning that you made a decision here tonight based on hypothetical and guesstimated numbers by our economic development director. You would think that we would have a clear data about how much revenue is truly being generated by our restaurant owners, some of which sit on your economic downtown improvement committee. With all due respect, I think that anyone who drove past some of these empty tables on Main Street night after night would find that that number of 155,000 visitors was quite inflated. Now, the person who spoke up here, you know, kind of took my thunder about all the numbers that were from Ordinance 022-008 in terms of the cost of moving the barriers and all of that stuff. It equates to well over $150,000. It also doesn't account for the legislation that Alderman Clemens put forward for $100,000 to make up for the shortfall in parking revenue to support the endeavors of the Downtown Improvement Committee. That's well over $200,000. When I walked into this chamber, I knew this is the Board of Aldermen chamber, not an animal shelter. So these catty remarks about public comments are completely unnecessary, especially if you don't have your facts correct. Thank you.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I think the restaurant owners and the public have barrier burnout. We're tired of the whole topic. We're tired of the whole thing. And I am suspect of some of the data we heard tonight from the Economic Development Director, because Ms. Bill worked with me and on her own to get all of this information from John Griffin and shared it with me and has kept me in the loop, and I think her numbers are good. And I don't think we should be questioning whether she's being truthful or not, or what the public is saying. You know, I came out in other years. I live very close to downtown. I drive downtown 4 or 5 times a week. And I can tell you, I think those barriers, I mean, those tables, outdoor dining tables, are very underutilized. Part of the issue is the New England climate. In the summer, the rain, the heat, it fluctuates so wildly, or it's cold. You've got a lot of climate issues in New England when you do this. I think we've done a great job supporting our downtown businesses. I really do. And the downtown in general. I think there has been plenty of commitment down there. I think we gave them free outdoor dining space and use of the barriers and extended without putting a cost on it at all. I really think that that space is so underutilized when I look at it. And there is definitely a recession going on down there, no question. The restaurants aren't keeping their doors open as much. The hours are very limited. I was in a restaurant last week where I was one of 3 people and I stayed with my computer to work, and it was 3 people for an hour and a half. They are sparsely attended right now because I think not a lot of people have money to go out. And nobody came out to say they wanted it. I'm concerned that the data from the Economic Development Director showed that she had talked to about 11 restaurant owners. I think there's more down there. And when she goes forward to present this plan in this compromise, which I'm very happy you got to that, and I'm glad you offered it, Alderman Clemmons, I think a letter should be written. I think a letter should go out tomorrow. It's a uniform letter, it's written clearly, it has the information, and then these people have an opportunity to come out and speak to you. And we know it goes out to everyone. It's a public record as well. Don't plan on getting on the phone and calling. Submit a record and encourage them to come forward. But I'm not going to feel bad if the barriers are completely gone. I'm okay with that. I don't think the way it stays downtown makes any sense at all. I think we're a little ahead of ourselves on this game plan. And I think there has to be a lot more respect for the public coming forward with their data and their information, that we try to do our best with what we have and to be as credible and honest as we can be. So please bear that in mind. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, Alderman Dow.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Remarks by
adjourn.
Alderman.
Huh?
You missed remarks by Alderman.
Well, I kind of figured,
Well, we just skipped
I often
pieces of the
ask-
meeting.
yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to that. You would think in public comment that we actually put the barriers back in place tonight. Actually, if we're going anywhere, we're going to less barriers. I'm the only one up here that said, I will put an amendment through to get rid of all barriers. So I know the comments were directed at me a little bit, but I was the one that would actually support what they want to support, which is getting rid of all barriers, for one thing. 2, I did not take Director Hannum's word for that cost. I said that's what the cost was, and then, good night, what I said was, I wanted her to respond to that later on. She never came back and responded to if that cost that she had on the board, which was $46,000, was accurate or not. I said, somebody in the public said it was $200,000. She says it's $46,000. I want her to come back at some point and explain the difference between that. That's what I said. Re-roll the tape if you want to go through 4 hours. But she never responded to that. And then she left the meeting. Once we voted that down, she left the meeting. You know, Director Sullivan, Director Cummings, they stick around. She left. So she didn't respond to that. So, and she didn't respond to some of the things, and I hate to get mad at her because I know she's doing the best job.
Yes,
and I
and
supported her,
Alderman,
but she did not
Can I ask the
answer
courtesy?
the question. She did not answer Alderman Sullivan.
Alderman, you're out of order.
I am not out of order.
My point is this, sir. Comments such as these to berate a public employee need to be moved up the particular ladder. There is a procedure, not at the open comment section of the meeting.
Alderman
That's
Ryan
why we
berated Director
have
Cummings at a meeting.
991A.
No one stopped him.
Can you, Alderman, please, all I'm asking for is decorum. I'm not saying your opinion is not worthwhile. It most certainly is.
I support Director Hannum, but she should have stuck around and answered some of the questions we asked.
Okay, but there's another format to do this, okay? And I just want you to be aware of that. Let's be examples to the community.
Adjourn the meeting.
And not like one of them or something.
Alderman
Okay.
Dowd's ready.
Alderman Clemmons?
Thank you. I just want to say.
No, excuse me, I meant Cummings, but
Director Cummings, yes.
unless you have something wicked and lightning.
I have one thing I wanted to say, yes.
Go ahead, quickly.
What I wanted to say was.
Can you do it quickly?
Yes.
I'm going to try.
Okay.
I wanted to say that I appreciated the public that came out this evening. I think that depending upon how you look at the numbers, that some of their numbers are pretty accurate. And I just wanted to state that for the record. I'm not arguing with them. So it all depends on how you can look at things. Certain things that we do have impacts in other areas and then when we do that, there's a domino effect on these things. And so depending on how you look at it, you could say it costs $46,000, or like Mr. Guthrow said, you could say it's upwards of $200,000. It just depends on how you look at it.
There's something pending here.
And so I want to just validate that I believe that what the public was saying, depending on how you look at it, was accurate.
Thank you. Alderman Clemmons. Excuse me, Director Cummings.
Well, thank you, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. Alderman Clemmons took a lot of what I was just about to say, which is I wanted to just be clear for the record. I think it's the numbers by both parties are accurate. It's just in terms of how you look at the numbers. I believe what is actually occurring from the public's perspective is they were compounding it and doing it over a couple of years. I believe Director Hannum was actually just giving you a single year. I know these numbers pretty well myself, and so I just wanted to kind of clarify that for the record for everyone, but Alderman Clemmons beat me to the punch. Thank you.
Okay. Something enlightening, because we
Very
have
quick.
a motion to adjourn.
No, there was no motion to adjourn yet.
Need a second.
I just agree with my colleague from Ward 8. There's nothing in the city charter that says that we can't criticize city employees. The only thing we can't do is ask for them to resign or direct them to do something. That's all that's in the city charter. And I don't think I berated Director Cummings, but I have definitely held city employees accountable for my constituents, which I'm elected to do.
Alderman
Motion to adjourn.
Motion. There is a God. Motion to adjourn, always in order. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? At 10:27 PM.
You know, we've been here late every single night this week.